All right, I guess we can get started. Ambassador Cajon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this fourth and last quarterly informal briefing for this year on the Global Compact on Refugees. Just a few housekeeping arrangements. Translation is available in English, French, and Spanish. If you're online, please select your preferred language by using the interpretation button on Zoom. I feel like part of a cabin crew right now. To view captioning, go to the Zoom meeting controls toolbar and click the show captions icon. I hope all of you got that. If you didn't, just use, try through trial and error. I would like to now just briefly introduce the people on the podium and also walk us through the agenda. On my left, I have His Excellency, the Ambassador for Colombia, Mr. Gustavo Gayon, who will be delivering the opening remarks along with myself. We're also joined on the podium by Nicolas Bras, who's our Senior Policy Advisor and Head of the GCR Coordination Team, who is, of course, well known to all of you, who will provide an update on the GRF pledges and stock taking, and by Anne Kea, who's the Head of UNHCR's Governance Service and who is extremely well known to all of you. So we will also hear several presentations from multi-stakeholder pledgers, which will then be followed by a floor discussion, which will provide an opportunity for everybody to comment and to share updates. And then we will wrap up and close the meeting. Thank you. With that, I would like to now hand the floor to the Ambassador for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rubendrini Menig Di Vela, Assistant High Commissioner for Protection of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, and thank you very much for giving me the floor. I'm going to deliver my speech in Spanish, if you allow me to do it. Señoras y
Ladies and gentlemen, permanent representatives, delegates, dear colleagues from the UNHCR, special guests from different international organizations, the interpreters kindly request if all microphones could be muted, unless taking the floor. Thank you. And non-governmental organizations, a very good afternoon, one and all. It is an absolute pleasure for me as permanent representative of Colombia, co-sponsor country of the second Global Refugee Forum, to have been invited today to the fourth quarterly informal briefing on the Global Compact of Refugees, the GCR, to talk about solutions. As is well known, the GCR sets out to tackle the deep-rooted causes pertaining to conflicts and violence. Thus, I certainly am very proud today that jointly with Egypt, Norway, and the UN Department of Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, the UNDPPA, we have worked together to launch during the second Global Refugee Forum the multi-stakeholder pledge on peacebuilding and conflict prevention. This pledge is a unique call to action for the international community that acknowledging that investing in peace today is a very cornerstone in order to prevent displacement tomorrow. Today, 33 stakeholders, which includes 19 member states, have joined different entities across the UN spectrum and international organizations and NGOs. And we certainly hope there will be many more to come. The core objective of this pledge is to address the deep-rooted causes of forced displacement through individual actions in the countries of origin, regional initiatives, and also matching pledges. Within these countries of origin, there are inter alia, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Honduras, Somalia, South Sudan, and my own country, Colombia. Amidst these pledges, there is a broad spectrum of tangible actions, from institutional strengthening, conflict management, early warning mechanisms, towards also reconciliation, provision of basic services, socioeconomic inclusion, participation of civil society, the rights to housing, land and property, and management of natural resources, access to justice, and participation of women and youth. I'd also like to share with you how this has been addressed with the leading countries. Egypt was one of the pioneering countries towards the implementation of this pledge, and within this framework has launched 2 new pledges which are towards capacity building. The first of these is called Tackling Climate Change Within Displacement, and this addresses the nexus between climate, peace and development, and this is based on the African continent. The second pledge is entitled Forced Displacement, Peace Building, Reconstruction and Development Post-Conflict. This is focused on a holistic approach to address the deep-rooted causes of forced displacement through the implementation of a nexus between humanitarian aid, development and peace. The latter has been implemented through a series of policy dialogues and capacity building workshops, which have been convened by the International Centre in Cairo for Conflict Resolution, Peacekeeping and Peace Building, and the first of these workshops took place between the 24th and 27th of November this year in Cairo. Turning to Norway, there is a pledge from this country in its joint work with the UNDPPA. They're working jointly so that the issue of forced displacement is an area of particular interest within the Peace Building Commission, the PBC. Thus, just 1st of July this year, there was a joint session held between the UN Economic and Social Council and with the PBC. This focused on forced displacement together with the participation of the High Commissioner, Filippo Grandi. There is also expected to be a session within the PBC in which forced displacement will be discussed. Turning to the UNDPPA, this body has facilitated the presentation of a joint pledge which includes UN organizations which are pledged towards peace building. Thus, entities are committed to take into account the needs and cross-cutting priorities of displaced persons and to work to ensure that no one is left behind within the peace-building consolidation initiatives. Also, in the Colombian state, in my countries, we have been gearing towards national and international endeavours towards the compliance of our obligations in terms of justice, peace, truth, redress and non-repetition, and also towards the application of recommendations within the Commission for the Clarification of Truth, Coexistence and Non-Repetition. I had the opportunity to share Colombia's experience together with the Assistant High Commissioner Ruvendrini within the side event that was organised by the UNHCR, and my apologies because I did so the Assistant High Commissioner for Protection from the UNHCR. Now, this was within the framework of the Summit for the Future on the 19th of September this year. Now, during this event, we spoke about the Pact for the Future and the link that this has with the Global Compact for Refugees, the GCR, and how we can connect these towards peace building, which is one of the critical goals for my country. Likewise, in December 2023, when we set out the pledge and following up on the recommendations stemming from the Commission of Truth, we paid tribute to 24 victims from the Colombian armed conflict and more since the beginning of this pledge, who had to leave the country as refugees or asylum seekers and found refuge here in Switzerland. The goal of these tributes is to acknowledge the ethical and political responsibility of the state towards the protection of their citizens. And there are almost 1 million Colombians who had to leave the country. They had to leave their country in order to find safety and a decent life. Now, these tributes, which took place in Geneva, this was a space towards reconciliation and symbolic redress. And this has been absolutely essential in order to make headway on the path towards reconciliation and lasting peace. We've also had the support of different international organizations, such as UNHCR, IOM, the Office of the High Commissioner of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the ILO, as well as other diplomatic offices and organizations from civil society. On behalf of these leading countries, who have these multi-stakeholder pledges, I would like to invite you to align yourselves with this initiative, and also to provide technical and financial support to countries of origin who form part of this pledge. It is important to recall that the UN Secretary-General's Peace-Building Fund is a tool that can be accessed by member states who are looking for support towards peace building. Moreover, focusing on the GCR, we would like to urge UN organizations and civil society organizations to ensure the meaningful participation of refugees and others who have been displaced within their policies and peace-building programs and conflict prevention programs, and where possible, also to provide them with technical and financial support, and to those leading countries who are actively participating in peace-building processes. Many of us who are here today have borne witness to see how inclusive and holistic processes in which refugees and displaced persons not only benefit from these processes, but are also active participants. This can serve to bolster the outcomes of peace building and to bolster lasting solutions. Let us recall that a path towards lasting peace and sustained peace not only is a national imperative, but also is a global responsibility, which is strongly anchored in the Global Compact for Refugees. We hope that we will make significant headway during the high-level officials meeting, which will be held in December next year. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your participation today. And I'd now like to give the floor back to the Assistant High Commissioner for Protection. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your very thoughtful remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to you all to this year's final informal briefing on the Global Compact on Refugees. Today, we turn our attention to solutions, both third country solutions and the safe and dignified return of refugees to their countries of origin. Nearly a year has passed since the second Global Refugee Forum, and I'd like to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to all of you present today, whether in person or online, for your steadfast commitment to the principles and objectives of the Compact. Our collective efforts to leverage the tools and mechanisms of the GCR are more essential than ever, as multiple crises across the world intensify. The Compact serves as a unifying framework, enabling us to come together in a spirit of shared responsibility and action. And we all well recognize the transformational power of our collaboration through the whole of society approach, which is the cornerstone for building truly durable solutions. The success of the Compact relies on our ability not only to pledge, but to deliver. The initial figures already tell an encouraging story. The 2023 forum catalyzed over 2,000 pledges, commitments aimed at providing tangible solutions, strengthening host communities, and ensuring that refugees have opportunities to thrive. Today, the majority of pledges reported on are in progress, with a significant proportion already fulfilled. While Nicola will elaborate more in detail on this, I do wish to reiterate that this is no small achievement. However, we must remain vigilant in ensuring that all pledges are met. Third country solutions, including resettlement and complementary pathways, are vital in addressing the protection needs of the most vulnerable refugees. Since the first Global Refugee Forum, we have seen meaningful progress. More states are offering resettlement places, and innovative private sponsorship programs are providing additional opportunities for refugees to rebuild their lives. Yet global demand continues to outpace availability. I urge states to expand resettlement quotas, engage new actors, and invest in making complementary pathways more accessible and sustainable. At the same time, improving conditions in countries of origin is fundamental to enabling safe and voluntary returns. This requires unwavering commitment to peace building, development, and addressing the root causes of displacement. Initiatives such as the Cartagena Plus 40 process in Latin America and multi-stakeholder pledges on peace building, housing, land and property rights, and many others that will be showcased today are powerful examples of how we can truly improve conditions for safe and dignified return. This is also why GRF pledge matching remains such a critical element of responsibility sharing. Bridging the gap between policy commitments by host countries and the financial, technical, and material support needed to fulfill them must remain a top priority for all of us. One persistent challenge we all recognize is how the GRF cycle does not coincide with most of the donors' budgetary cycles. To address this, we propose to all donors to consider prioritizing the unfulfilled policy pledges since the first Global Refugee Forum of 2019 in their upcoming planning cycles. By doing so, we can ensure that host countries receive the necessary support to implement these commitments and advance the GCR objectives. Our GCR coordination team stands ready to engage in further discussions on this topic. Ladies and gentlemen, solutions demand years and decades of sustained efforts and investment, requiring both short-term to long-term coordinated interventions by stakeholders across humanitarian, development, and peace spheres. One recurring theme in solutions dialogues is the importance of strong, practical collaboration at the local, regional, and international levels. Last week, we had a productive dialogue on local solutions for peaceful coexistence, where academics, faith-based groups, international and refugee-led organizations, and civil societies provided valuable insights and made calls for enhanced collaboration across all phases, before, during, and after displacement, including all concerned parties, refugees, youth, women, persons with disabilities, the elderly, and local communities and partners, will help close protection gaps and ensure that no one is left behind. We have recently issued guidance on meaningful refugee participation in the pledge process that we hope can help sustain the engagement of forcibly displaced and stateless persons and the organizations they lead in pledge implementation on the ground. Looking ahead, the high-level officials meeting in December 2025 and the stock-taking process leading up to it offer an important opportunity to renew our commitments and assess our collective progress. We need to continue to invest in solutions that not only inspire confidence, but also advance refugee self-reliance and resilience, empowering both refugee communities and their very generous hosts. Together, we can ensure that the Compact remains a living instrument, a blueprint of hope, solidarity, and solutions. Thank you. I would now like to hand the floor over to Mr. Nicolas Bras, Senior Policy Advisor and the head of the GCR coordination team, for his remarks. Over to you, Nicolas.
Thank you, Assistant High Commissioner for Protection, and thank you, Your Excellency, for your opening remarks. Allow me to take some 10 minutes of your time to walk you through the game plan we have for the coming year in terms of stock-taking process, but also update you on the latest pledge reporting campaign that we have been carrying out. And allow me to start by thanking all of you for the support in this exercise, both in person or online, acting either as pledging entities and reporting directly, or as supporters, champions of the different pledges or multi-stakeholder pledges, which some of you are leading or co-leading. So I have a few slides, which I will invite you to look at while I'm speaking. Let me start by perhaps the big ticket item we are looking at for next year, which is the high-level officials meeting. And apologies if this is maybe something that you have already heard, but making sure that everybody is aware of the dates. This will be taking place on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of December 2025. The tentative program, and I insist on tentative because we are discussing with all of you to make sure that the program meets everybody's expectations to the extent possible. This is not going to be another global refugee forum. The tentative program foresees an advance day and two days of meeting per se. We will, of course, get back to you in our next briefing, the first one of next year, with more details on that. But let me just reiterate that this is not going to be another global refugee forum, also in terms of size, format. The venue will be at the CICG, for those of you who are familiar with Geneva, so it is not Palexpo. Of course, we will provide more details on the logistics as we work towards the meeting itself. Next slide, please. So this, and we will be sharing the presentation, of course, with you all. This gives you an idea of the global timeline that we have for next year that will take us all to the high-level officials meeting. As this year, we will have our 4 informal briefings or preparatory briefings that will take place at pretty much the same date, March, June, September, and November, which will be dedicated to the logistics of the high-level officials meeting itself. As part of the process, and of course, in addition to the regular UNHCR governance meetings, which will be an opportunity to also take stock of progress, of pledge implementation and realization of the GCR objectives, we will carry out a stock-taking process at different levels. And here you can see on the slide the plan that we have over the first 6 months of next year. And I will be sharing a few more details on the stock-taking in a minute. The whole idea, and this is something we mentioned also at our last informal briefing, is really to walk into the HLOM as informed as possible. So that is based, of course, on pledge reporting process. And again, thank you all for your support in this regard. But also, we will have issued by then the next GCR indicator report, which is issued every 2 years, as you may know. And if the compact is our collective blueprint, this is very much our compass. And that will also tell us a bit more about the state of realization of the GCR and its 4 objectives. Next slide. Now, a few statistics on the pledge implementation and where we stand. And again, this presentation will be shared with all of you, and the data is available on the dashboard, on the Global Compact on Refugees dedicated the digital platform. So to date, if we aggregate all the pledges made at the GRF 2019 and GRF 2023, all the active pledges, we have over 3,300 pledges. Based on the reporting that we have compiled, consolidated, we can report that to date, 700 pledges have been fulfilled. This, of course, includes a majority of pledges made as part of the GRF 2019, but not only. And you may remember that when we met in September, we were reporting back that 4 out of 10 pledges from the first GRF had been fulfilled. As of today, we have passed the 50% mark. That is very encouraging because this is also a reminder to us all that GRF 2019, the pledges made back then, very ambitious, some of them were extremely ambitious, their implementation is still an ongoing process. And we are thankful to those of you who have reported back on their implementation. Now, as part of the reporting campaign, and by campaign I mean the reporting exercise we have been carrying out over the past weeks and months, and if we look at 2024 only, we have received 691 pledges updates. And that is very encouraging in terms of numbers. As Ruven has just mentioned, we had over 2,000, received 2,000 pledges from the GRF 2023. So this is more than this is close to a third of pledges being updated. And that is quite encouraging in terms of numbers if we look at past GRF and reporting process. Now, of course, you will not be surprised in hearing me calling all of you to keep on reporting back. We know that some of you have not been able to submit yet the report in the system for various reasons, and there is one can report at any given time. So please follow up with your colleagues if it's not you the relevant focal point, or with us if you have any issue with the reporting format and an online platform. But out of those close to 700 pledges being updated, 500 are reporting being in progress, 35 in planning phase, and 153 being fulfilled. Again, here the majority of those 153 pledges being fulfilled are from the GRF 2019. We'd like to thank in particular stakeholders who have been extremely diligent in reporting back. And again, for us, it's extremely important to have information as accurate as possible so that we can really help you walk into the HLOM as informed as possible. We need to have relevant information and as honest as possible. So it's not about over-reporting, it's really giving us the facts and the data that will really help us all have substantive discussions. And here, perhaps this is a call to civil society actors and non-state actors. We have 121 updates coming from the civil society. Obviously, this is something we'd like to see more updates coming from non-state actors as we move into 2025. Also, and that's perhaps more for information, the vast majority of updates are coming from Europe and the Americas. This data is to be taken with a bit of nuance, simply because statistically the vast majority of pledges made at the GRF were actually coming from entities based in those regions. So it's not to say that other regions are reporting less, but it's just a trend that is worth sharing with you all. Next slide. When it comes to the multi-stakeholder pledges, and this again for your information, and this is obviously a moving target, we are pleased to report that some of the most reported multi-stakeholder pledges, with no real surprise considering the number of commitments made under those pledges, are the self-reliance pledges, education, but also economic inclusion and social protection. The pledges also that speak to third country solutions, and we'll hear more about those today. And also some of the cross-cutting pledges that really help us enable, accelerate the implementation of other pledges and implementation of the compact. And I think we will also be hearing from some today, including from sports, but also we have cities and meaningful refugee participation as well. Next slide. Now, on stock taking. The stock taking process, it's really a moment that should take us all the way to the HLOM, where we'll be taking stock of the GCR implementation and the realization against the objectives. So it's really for us a way of looking at the key trends, looking at the impacts, but also the challenges and opportunities that we have, that we are facing. So for this, we really need a thorough updates on individual pledges, and this is a call that I'm reiterating now. The HLOM itself is the half milestone between two global refugee forums. So it will be an opportunity for us to take stock of the implementation of pledges, but also correct course if need be. Perhaps formulate new pledges, re-articulating existing ones. So it is something that is it's an important moment for all of us to come together as whole of society actors and look at how we are progressing against the GCR realization. We've also heard you loud and clear that you wanted the stock-taking process as light and flexible, also mindful of context specificities, which is why we have not, and I will share more details in a minute, established a process that is too prescriptive. We are putting the onus on our own colleagues, UNHCR teams on the ground, to make sure that we are fulfilling our catalytic role to accompany you in this journey. And the last point, but not the least, the outcomes of this stock-taking process will inform the discussion at the HLOM, which will subsequently also inform the development of the roadmap and priorities that we will set to all of us towards the next Global Refugee Forum in 2027. Next slide. This visual gives you an idea of the stock-taking process and the specific calendar for next year. By no means it is meant to be prescriptive, and it's just to give you an indication of the sequencing and choreography. So obviously it starts with individual pledge reporting, which is on an ongoing process. Then we will have, and we can share more details as part of the discussion if you are interested in, we are expecting to have a number of regional moments of stock taking. And this can take different forms. It can be an in-person meeting. It can be a series of online roundtables. It will also piggyback on existing moments such as regional NGO consultations and other multi-stakeholder meetings. And the example that Ruven gave as part of that dialogue had last week with civil society and academics is a good one. In parallel, but preferably right after the regional stock-taking moments will have taken place, we are also expecting that multi-stakeholder pledges will take stock of the implementation of commitments made under their multi-stakeholder pledges. Some are actually pretty active already, and some meetings have already taken place in the fourth quarter of this year. What we are encouraging and advising to avoid also having multiple parallel series of meetings which may talk about the same thing is to coordinate as much as possible. So again, for those of you who are leading those multi-stakeholder pledges, please share with us your plans so that we can coordinate and make sure that we map all those events. This information, which will sort of take stock by mid-next year, our team will be crunching and consolidate the information, the data, so that we can really come up with some reports that will be shared ahead of the HLOM with all stakeholders to inform the discussions. Next slide. So stock taking, what you can do as respective actors. Well, sorry to repeat that for the third or fourth time, but you can report on your pledges. You can encourage your constituents to report on their pledges as well. And you can champion such reporting campaign if you are convening meetings, stock-taking meetings at country level, stock-taking meetings at the level of multi-stakeholder pledges. Please leverage the existing mechanism. There's no need to reinvent any wheel. There is some interagency mechanisms, some coordination mechanisms in place. We have also support platforms in some regions that can also help that stock-taking process. Bring partners together. Again, this is calling on your championing role. I think for those of you who are here with us today, listening in or being in the room, you see yourselves as playing such a role. Very important, and to repeat what Ruven just mentioned about the recently issued guidance on meaningful refugee participation, please engage, and not just please, it's really a call for engaging meaningfully with refugees. All multi-stakeholder pledges have committed to engage with refugees in a meaningful manner as part of the implementation process of the pledges. And last but not the least, the stock-taking process is all about impact and results, and this journey will help us have meaningful discussions at the next HLOM. Thank you. Back to you, Ruven. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. We will now get updates on a number of multi-stakeholder pledges which are contributing to solutions for refugees and to the other GCR objectives through a variety of enabling measures. In the interest of time, we do ask you to kindly limit your interventions to 5 minutes to ensure that there is adequate time for discussion. We will first hear from Resolve, which stands for the Resilience and Solutions Pledge for the Afghanistan situation, which will be presented by Ambassador Warner ten Cate, Head of the Migration and Development Division at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Yes, dear Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, first and foremost, I would like to thank the chairs of this important meeting, Assistant High Commissioner for Protection, Ms. Ruvendrini Minnick-de-Iwela, and the Permanent Representative of Colombia to the United Nations Office at Geneva, Ambassador Gustavo Gayón. Thank you for hosting this meeting. As the chair of the Solutions Strategy for Afghan Refugee Support Platform, it is a pleasure to provide a brief update on the Resolve multi-stakeholder pledge for resilience and solutions in the Afghanistan situation. The Resolve multi-stakeholder forum operates as part of the Solution Strategy for Afghan Refugees Support Platform, which was launched during the first GRF in 2019. The SSAR, in its acronym, has offered a flexible mechanism to discuss and advocate for critical issues with relevant regional actors. This Resolve multi-stakeholder pledge has become a new addition to the SSAR We believe that these pledge commitments offer a vital forum for collaboration. We hope that governments of major host countries will decide to continue engaging and eventually match in the pledges, and that collaboration between other stakeholders will lead to more knowledge exchange while enhancing pledge implementation. While the pledges represent an encouraging starting point, we suggest looking into restructuring them in the coming year. Our wish would be to make the Resolve Forum a more operational component feeding into the SSCR without increasing the number of meetings. As the current SSCR chair, the Netherlands is pleased to see the support platform increasingly leveraged to share reliable data and improve collaboration among humanitarian and development agencies, the international community, and governments in key host countries. In the coming year, we wish to strengthen the political dialogue, build on the positive example of the SSCR country core group in Pakistan, and reinvigorate similar groups in Afghanistan and Iran. The Afghan displacement crisis is one of the most protected and complex in the world. For over 40 years, neighboring countries have demonstrated remarkable hospitality toward Afghans in need. However, recent developments have complicated this narrative. Since September 2023, Pakistan's Ministry of Interior has implemented the illegal foreigners repatriation plan, resulting in the return of over 750,000 Afghans, predominantly undocumented individuals. In Iran, 1.4 million Afghans have returned in 2024, including 614,000 deportations as of October. Both countries are facing increasing pressures, with Iran, the largest refugee hosting country globally, and it should be acknowledged for that, announcing a similar plan as Pakistan to repatriate undocumented Afghans. While addressing immediate needs, we must not lose sight of our long-term vision to reach sustainable solutions. This requires political dialogue when possible, sustained programming engagement, and financial commitments to ensure that the Afghan people and host communities, those at the heart of this effort, are supported in leading dignified lives. Let us remain steadfast to resolve while taking meaningful incremental steps, keeping our ultimate goals in focus, and together we can rise to the complex yet profoundly important challenge of addressing displacement and fostering resilience for those affected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. We would now like to welcome Mr. Ayad Jabari, a former refugee from Syria, currently based in Buenos Aires, Argentina, who is a member of Fundación Amal Argentina, and who will present on the resettlement and community-based sponsorship pledges. Mr. Jabari, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests and those who are present. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this important meeting. So I will be talking about two issues, which are resettlement and sponsorship. And I will talk about the pledges and some progress and challenges that are being faced in this frame. So let's start with some background on resettlement. UNHCR projects that 2.9 million refugees need resettlement, which highlights the immense scale. 96,000 refugees departed for resettlement in 2023 and 56,000 thus far in 2024. Prioritizing those with acute protection risks and high vulnerability for resettlement means that every decision can have profound impact on individuals' lives. The careful planning and assessment involved in resettlement ensure that the most vulnerable are given a chance for safety and stability. It's a task that requires not only the protection expertise, but also compassion and understanding of the refugee needs and situations. So now we'll move to talk about some things that we can do together to expand the space of resettlement. So the first thing is funding and other infrastructure to support global resettlement activities and to work with host governments to create better conditions for the refugees, policies and practices to promote equitable needs-based access to resettlement. And the third point is more countries to join resettlement efforts, which also means a recognition of the burden of countries hosting a larger number of refugees and share responsibility. So now I'll move to talk about the multi-stakeholder pledge on resettlement. within the framework of the third country solutions for refugees, the roadmap for the year 2030, the objective is to resettle 1 million refugees by the end of the year 2030. So what are the mechanisms that are applied to follow up with the pledges? The first mechanism, the first thing is that those mechanisms are mainstreamed into ongoing and existing strong relationships and mechanisms with resettlement countries related to quota discussions and resettlement processing. So the second mechanism is consultation on resettlement and complementary pathways, the annual event, that's the CRCP, and also the working group that is done earlier in preparation for the event. And the third is the priority situations core groups, or PSCG. So now we will move to talk about some challenges that we are clearly facing in the scope of resettlement, but also some positive notes on that issue. So 155,000 refugees were submitted for resettlement only in 2023. While political change impacts resettlement, including in resettlement countries, how can we expand resettlement, which is a precious humanitarian and political tool, through ongoing positive collaboration between all resettlement stakeholders and refugees? So we invite all in the room to engage in discussions to better understand where there is a space to protect resettlement or to adjust it in ways that are acceptable to all. We would like to hear from you your updates on resettlement pledges. What good practices or thoughts do you have on how to ensure implementation of pledges or overcome obstacles? And what are helpful reporting mechanisms for you also? So that was everything for resettlement. I'll move now to talk about community sponsorship, and I will start with the pledge. So the multi-stakeholder pledge on sponsorship aims to develop, continue, or expand sponsorship programs to grow third country solutions, enhance integration prospects, and strengthen community narratives. The pledge is being supported and followed up under existing structures of the Global Refugees Sponsorship Initiative, which is the GRSI, and it is being supported by UNHCR. So now we'll move to talk about some progress that has been made in the implementation of the pledges. We'll start with the government of Brazil that has already fulfilled its pledge, launching a new sponsorship program. Also, there have been updates to state pledges from the government of Ireland on new arrivals under the Community Sponsorship Ireland program, and from the US on their expansion of the Welcome Corps program to include a naming stream. So the GRSI, Community Sponsorship Organizations, which is the CSO network, has developed a comprehensive sponsorship group foundation toolkit to support organizations in effectively engaging and supporting prospective community sponsorship group leaders. And it also held the Global Sponsorship Summit in November, bringing together strategic leaders to discuss key challenges and opportunities in sponsorship. Also, I would like to share with you some news about the Global Sponsorship Fund. Okay, so the foundational work towards establishing this fund has begun. The Robert Bosch Foundation and also the government of Italy became the inaugural donors of the Global Sponsorship Fund. The funds committed will support both the initial establishment of the fund as well as small pilots to fund sponsor groups. This year, the GRSI celebrated 1 million refugees welcomed into new communities by sponsorship programs around the world since its inception in the year 2016. And we look forward to continuing this momentum together. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jabari, I do apologize. We didn't hear the last couple of minutes of your briefing because the sound suddenly disappeared.
Can you hear me now?
If you could just repeat the last couple of minutes of your briefing, please. Thank you.
So I referred to the progress that has been made in the implementation of the pledges. I referred to the government of Brazil and its implementation and launching of a new sponsorship program. And also, I said that there have been updates on state pledges from the government of Ireland on new arrivals under the Community Sponsorship Ireland program, and also from the United States on their expansion of the Welcome Corps program to include, some examples. I also referred to, the CSO, or the Community Sponsorship Organizations that belongs to the GRSI. And I said that the network has developed a comprehensive sponsorship group formation toolkit to support organizations in effectively engaging and supporting prospective community sponsorship group leaders. And it held the Global Sponsorship Summit in November, and the summit brought together strategic leaders to discuss key challenges and opportunities in sponsorship. And I also referred to the work being done to establish the Global Sponsorship Fund. I mentioned that the Robert Bosch Foundation and the government of Italy became the inaugural donors to the Global Sponsorship Fund. I said that the funds that are committed will support both the initial establishment of the fund and small pilots to fund sponsor groups. And I said that this year, the GRSI celebrated 1 million refugees welcomed into new communities by sponsorship programs around the world since the inception of those programs in the year 2016. We look forward to continuing this momentum together, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jabari, and my apologies for that glitch at the last minute. I would now like to welcome Mr. David Crawford, the managing partner at Fragamin, who will speak on behalf of the pledges on skills-based complementary pathways, machine-readable travel documents, and family reunification. Mr. Crawford, the floor is yours.
Assistant High Commissioner and Your Excellency, thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the GRF last December, we saw clear commitment on skills-based complementary pathways, travel documents and family reunification from many actors. A demonstration of state leadership from Brazil, Portugal, Australia and Canada, along with diverse stakeholder support from the private sector, RLOs and community groups, made pledges towards a goal of 200,000 refugees arriving on labour mobility and education pathways within 5 years and 1 million being reunited with their families by 2030. The multi-stakeholder pledge on refugee travel documents aimed... That's what I found. I'll turn that off. My phone, I'm sorry. The multi-stakeholder pledge on refugee travel... For goodness sake. I didn't think I'd have a badly behaved watch, so there you go. The multi-stakeholder pledge on refugee travel documents aims to increase access to and improve use of machine-readable and multiple-use travel documents issued by states while offering protection safeguards. This contributes to the efforts of other complementary pathways pledges, as it will allow refugees to take up opportunities and connect with family members in other countries. 1 year on from the GRF, we see evidence of these commitments taking shape while other pledging entities are still laying the groundwork towards positive change. Progress towards pledge implementation has been reported by a number of entities, including law and policy changes implemented by the governments of Lithuania and Scotland, support and facilitation initiatives from the governments of Italy, Ireland and Germany, as well as support from GovRise, Asilex, Migration Inc., Refuge Point, Consiglio Nazionale de Notariato, the Refugee Council of Australia, Iberia, World University Service of Canada, Pathways Japan, Japan ICU Foundation, LUISS University, the ICRC and the Turkish Red Crescent, plus new education pathways and skilling to hire projects in the Asia-Pacific region. There is ongoing collaboration with Kyrgyzstan, Burkina Faso and South Sudan, who are making improvements to their travel document policies to facilitate options for cross-border travel. However, securing the involvement of the private sector in the objectives of the pledging process of the Global Compact is essential and brings life to the whole of society approach that is needed to make progress. And this particularly relates to skills-based complementary pathways. My own firm, Fragaman, remains an active member of the Global Task Force on Refugee Labour Mobility, and alongside Talent Beyond Boundaries and the IOE, we have set up a corporate engagement working group as part of the task force's effort to elevate private sector engagement for hiring skilled refugees. These efforts take many forms. We work in various networking fora around the world. We have 65 offices around the world. TVB and IOE are also expansive around the world. We're involved in broad sweep marketing efforts, webinars, hosting functions and so on. And we are approaching and advocating industry groups in addition to associations and individual employers, many of them very large. And we seek to do so and interest them in hiring skilled refugees through labour mobility pathways. And the message is simple. The experience to date is refugees have a very high retention rate. They are favourable additions to the workforce. They are skilled people. The label of refugee is not a problem. And the world needs skilled people. There are shortages elsewhere. In our own case, we made a pledge for 10,000 people through the life of the forum to cross borders lawfully and to commence a new life. In the first 12 months since the GRF, we've assisted 1,000 people in securing visas and provided related legal services. It should be added that that makes our number more than 2,500 people who have secured a durable solution. The interest is increasing. There are now 12 destination countries running official talent mobility programs, or who are committed to running mobility programs. And we now find that there are 39 countries, host countries, who are approaching us for support. We are building momentum in private sector engagement, and we are making headway. We have heard from refugees and hosting states that more support is needed. And there is a shared responsibility to turn our commitments into action. We know this, and we look forward to seeing what we can accomplish together in 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford, for your update. I now welcome, on behalf of the multi-stakeholder pledge on hate speech, misinformation and disinformation, Mr. Sven Wroldsen, the First Secretary for Humanitarian Issues of the Permanent Mission of Norway. Mr. Wroldsen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Assistant High Commissioner, Your Excellency, dear colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to update you on the progress on the Digital Protection Multi-Stakeholder Pledge. Before I start, let me use this opportunity to thank His Excellency Ambassador Gustavo Gayon of Colombia for his briefing on the multi-stakeholder pledge on peacebuilding and conflict prevention. As a co-lead, Norway fully aligns with this intervention and appreciates the progress made possible by our co-leads and pledge partners. Misinformation, disinformation and hate speech are unfortunately an increasing global trend, so also in the humanitarian world. They present a particular challenge for forcibly displaced communities, as they can create and sustain protection risks. They can hinder access to essential services, exacerbate social tensions, and narrow opportunities for solutions and self-reliance. They can also undermine our collective work to address protection and solutions. Finally, misinformation can erode trust in humanitarian and civil society organizations and disrupt delivery of assistance and protection. Next slide. The multi-stakeholder pledge on digital protection was launched to increase the number of stakeholders taking action to better understand, practically respond to, and help prevent harmful impacts on displaced and stateless communities, and on humanitarian action of misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. To address these complex risks, multi-stakeholder partnerships are key. The pledge has brought in novel commitments from 23 partners, including the private sector, including Google and Meta, as well as governments, civil society, media organizations, academia, refugee-led organizations, ICRC, and UN partners. The pledge covers a range of interventions with a diverse geographic footprint. Next slide, please. For Norway, the Digital Protection Pledge is closely linked to one of our humanitarian priorities. Protection aspects of digital threats, particularly in armed conflict, is a highlighted area in Norway's new humanitarian strategy, and this and related topics come up regularly in the group of friends on humanitarian innovation that Norway coordinates here in Geneva. I want to share with you 2 concrete examples of projects that are countering these harmful narratives in practice, made possible through financial and technical support from Innovation Norway. One has just launched in South Africa. This is a pioneering project working with multiple stakeholders, including the government, refugee representatives, civil society, academia, and the private sector, including international and national private sector and tech companies. It is testing preemptive solutions to support learners in South Africa to identify how misinformation and disinformation can fuel divides and foster hate against foreigners, including refugees and asylum seekers. At the core of the project is the principle of consultation, refugee participation, and the need to leverage diverse expertise to develop locally appropriate solutions to growing online information risks. We have already seen the dividends of these innovative partnerships and how strengthening community resilience to misinformation and disinformation can strengthen information integrity and mitigate against the proliferation of hate on digital platforms. Second is LAHA, a virtual safe space developed by UNICEF to empower women and girls, especially in conflict and displacement settings, by providing trusted information on gender-based violence and sexual and reproductive health and rights. LAHA was created with the understanding that misinformation and disinformation often thrive in these vulnerable contexts, spreading harmful myths that exacerbate existing protection risks. Through LAHA, we are giving women and girls the tools they need to be informed, to feel safe, and to make decisions for themselves. The platform integrates digital literacy modules that help women and girls identify and navigate misinformation on platforms like Facebook and TikTok, teaching them how to critically assess and cross-check the information they encounter. LAHA currently reaches 500,000 women and girls across 10 languages and is set to scale to 15 languages by 2025, ensuring that more women and girls in crisis-affected areas have access to vital, reliable information. As part of the multi-stakeholder pledge, LAHA's inclusion reflects our commitment to not only counter harmful narratives, but also empower displaced communities with the tools to protect themselves against digital threats. In closing, I want to acknowledge and thank our wide network of partners in this multi-stakeholder pledge. Progress on such complex issues is only possible when the partners from the private sector, the media, academia, civil society, and MFU work together with member states and the UN. Moreover, solutions can only be effective if they are locally driven. Let me end with a strong encouragement for others to join the pledge. You're always welcome. A wide range of partnerships and contributions are needed, from research, technical support, advocacy. Everyone has a role to play. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roldan. Representing the regional pledge made by the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, we welcome Madam Fatia Alwan, Director for Health and Social Development of IGAD. Madam Alwan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. For IGAD, during the 2023 Global Refugee Forum, IGAD has made a 2 regional pledge that its member state had agreed to pursue collectively. The first pledge aimed at delivering a comprehensive solution for forcibly displaced population and also the respective host. The pledge is organized around 3 outcomes. The first outcome supports the creation of conducive and enabling environment for the comprehensive solution that enable IGAD member states to develop and also operationalize the law, policies, and practice that advance protection, inclusion, and solutions for displaced population and their host community. It also supports the strengthening of member state statistical system to include the forcibly displaced and stateless person. The second pledge also focuses on the strengthening the collaboration and coordination between the multilateral and bilateral donors, and also other key stakeholders across the humanitarian development peace-building nexus, with the aim of mobilizing and also measuring and tracking additional, more predictable and sustainable financial, political, technical support towards a comprehensive solutions. The third also outcome is focusing on the peace building. As you know, also our region, is prone to conflict, and conflict prevention by addressing the root causes of displacement through the establishment and monitoring of regional peace mechanisms, support the good governance and the democratic electoral process, also by promoting the regional and bilateral mediation and reconciliation process, and also supporting the transitional justice process, and also facilitating the meaningful participation of refugees in the peace process and mechanism. The main progress on the implementation of this pledge include the following. IGAD has launched the National Durable Solution Strategies and Revised Action Plan on Return, Reintegration and Recovery for the South Sudan on October 10, 2024. Both also documents provide a framework for how governments, line ministries, humanitarians, and development actors will deliver solutions and also provide an overarching guidance. It also introduces a new solution architecture, which also places government in the driving seat and also brings on board multiple stakeholders. The National Durable Solution Strategy and also the Revised Action Plan are both timely for South Sudan. As of October 24, the South Sudan had received over 800,000 individuals from Sudan since the eruption of the conflicts on 15 April 2023. More than 3/4 of the population of South Sudanese returnees and also nearly a quarter are refugees and other nationalities. South Sudanese also are returning from Sudan under adverse conditions. Many returnees are now at risk of becoming an IDPs, and if we don't intervene with solution. Additionally, also South Sudan already hosts more than 2 million IDPs. We therefore also need to support the efforts of the government of South Sudan to roll out and implement the durable solution strategy and its plan of action. In Ethiopia, IGAD also supports the consultation of the Makatet multi-sectoral roadmap for the socio-economic inclusion of refugees. In November 24, while we are hoping that representative from Ethiopia will provide more details, the roadmap also not only addresses the immediate needs of over 1 million refugees, but also foster long-term social cohesion, economic integration, and also resilience for both refugees and their host community. In Djibouti, through the rollout of the Regional Migration Fund, financed by the German Development Bank, KfW, IGAD is rehabilitating the Technical Vocational College and constructing market center to enable both refugees and host community to engage in lucrative commercial activities and also diversify their livelihoods. IGAD, the East African Community, and also UNHCR have recently completed an African Development Bank study on enhancing the investment climate for economic empowerment of refugees, returnees, and host return community in the East and Horn of Africa and Great Lakes region. The study provides key recommendations on pathway to economic inclusion of refugees, returnees, and host community in line with 2019 Kampala Declaration on Job, Livelihood, and Self-Reliance. IGAD commit to engage and dialogue with member states on this recommendation to unlock the potential for private sector engagement and investment in displacement setting. Finally, also, IGAD has recently, last week, launched the Refugee Engagement Forum in November 28 last week to promote the meaningful refugee participation. The launching of this forum in Uganda last week is designed to provide a platform for refugees leaders to engage with their leaders and also other stakeholders. The second regional pledge also is related to climate action. The pledge also aims to protect and promote the resilience of host community, displaced and stateless people living in the climate vulnerable solution and also fleeing climate-related crises against the immediate growing impact of climate change on their human rights, security, and development. This was to be achieved through strengthening the inclusion of refugees and other forcibly displaced and stateless people in the community that hosts them in the climate action laws, policies, and plans, but also strengthening and expanding the protection strategies and durable solutions for refugees and other forcibly displaced people in the context of climate change. The main achievement under this pledge includes the progress made under the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Joint Program 21-23 on addressing the drivers and facilitating safe, orderly, and regular migration. The key achievements also include the development of standard operating procedure called SOPs on admission and stay in cross-border disaster displacement solution, and also simulation exercise to test and validate the SOPs modeling of displacement risk as a result of climate and revision of National Adaptation Plan and National Plan of Action to include human mobility. These achievements have been already showcases under various platforms, such as the just concluded COP29 in Baku, and also in the Khartoum process meeting in Luxor in Egypt. The government of Germany, through GIZ, has also committed to upscale some of this initiative and recommendation from the final evaluation of the joint program through a new grant called Mobility, Disaster, and Climate Change in the IGAD region, MODIAC. Other also partners, including European Union, Sweden, World Bank, and also other partners on the mega pledge on self-reliance, climate change, and peace building have provided additional support to IGAD to support both pledges. As I conclude, I wish to highlight that despite this progress, challenge of resource, be it technical, financial, or political, remain critical in translating the different commitments into tangible outcome for the affected population, particularly at the national level. I therefore also reiterate the need for pledge matching in the spirit of burden and responsibility sharing. Unfortunately, for the IGAD region, the displacement figures are consistently on the rise. And currently, we have 23 million displaced population, with the Sudan crisis contributing to more than half of this population. Thank you so much. Merci.
Thank you for your update, Madam Alwan. Last but not least, we are happy to welcome Mr. Markus Meyer, Counselor for Political Affairs of the Permanent Mission of Germany, who will be speaking on the Gender Equality and Prevention of Gender-Based Violence Pledge. Mr. Meyer, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Assistant High Commissioner, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to provide an update on the progress of the multi-stakeholder pledge on gender equality and protection from gender-based violence. I have the honor to deliver this update on behalf of the co-leads of the multi-stakeholder pledge, Australia, Chile, Germany, the United Kingdom, as well as the Action Network on Forced Displacement, the Whole World Women Association, and the Rohingya Maifuinor Collaborative Network. Madam Chair, over 60 million forcibly displaced and stateless women and girls are at particular risk of gender-based violence. Intersecting forms of discrimination are further increasing risks of violence for forcibly displaced and stateless women and girls, including those with disabilities. In 2023 alone, conflict-related sexual violence was reported to have surged by 50%. As the international community, we are currently mobilizing in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence and are preparing to commemorate 30 years of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action on Gender Equality. It is at this point that we must recall that services to prevent and address gender-based violence are not desirable objectives, but essential in life-saving. Madam Chair, over 100 stakeholders are contributing with 166 pledges to our multi-stakeholder pledge. This commitment is a significant increase to efforts since 2019. Updates on the pledge are demonstrating progress on first, increasing the safe and dignified access to GBV prevention and response services, and second, supporting the work of organizations led by forcibly displaced and stateless women. Allow me to provide a few examples. Australia is designing a new program to increase support for women refugee-led organizations and networks with a focus on addressing GBV. Australia is also engaging refugee women and refugee-led organizations in a new Southeast Asia GBV prevention platform to strengthen locally led efforts to prevent GBV through evidence-based advocacy, dialogue, policy, and programming. Australia has also funded the development of a resource kit to support refugee-led work to address GBV and barriers to participation, to be launched in January 2025. This aligns with the commitment to do more to address gender-based violence in crisis context in Australia's new humanitarian policy, which was released in October 2024. Another example, the UN Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women will shortly be awarding a range of grants to women-led organizations led by displaced women or working in displacement settings on violence prevention and response in conflict and crises. The call to action on protection from GBV in emergencies, currently led by Germany, is including more organizations led by refugee women in the call to action's core processes, including at the annual partners meeting. The call to action also prioritizes the application of women refugee-led organizations to become members of the platform. Their participation and leadership were also at the core of a series of webinars organized by the call to action that are aimed at capacity sharing. Lastly, Germany allocated an additional 11 million euros in 2024 to advance the participation and leadership of displaced women and girls. This was done in partnership with the Action Network on Forced Displacement and the WPHF's funding initiative on forced displacement. The funding involves 5 million euro for projects by grassroots organizations in contexts chosen by the Action Network, including Ukraine, Moldova, Syria, and Palestine, with a fifth country in Africa yet to be selected. Additionally, 6 million euro are directed towards supporting those affected by the escalating crisis in Lebanon since September 2024. Action Network members are also going to be involved in the pre-selection of grassroots projects in these respective countries. Madam Chair, as we are approaching our stock-taking event in February 2025, ahead of the high-level officials meeting in December, we encourage all pledging entities to provide updates on the progress of their respective pledges, echoing once more Mr. Brass's call to report, as we're all trying to do. As co-leads of the multi-stakeholder pledge on gender equality and protection from gender-based violence, we will continue to mobilize stakeholders to collectively ensure better protection for displaced and stateless women and girls, as well as their host communities, and to invest in localized responses driven by refugee women and girls' leadership. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayer. I'd like to thank all of you for your very, very substantive updates. We will now proceed to the discussion part of the briefing, and I will hand the floor to Ambassador Cayón to moderate this session.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Assistant High Commissioner for Protection. I'd also like to thank all of you for these encouraging updates. I'd now like to open the floor to participants. If you do wish to speak, please raise your nameplate. For online participants who wish to speak, please indicate your name and affiliation in the chat box. And please raise your hand so that we can give you the floor when the time comes. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and affiliation. Kindly, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes to allow time for other participants to take the floor. We'll do our utmost to accommodate as many interventions as possible within the time allotted for this session. I'd like to start by giving the floor to Denmark. Denmark, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to deliver this statement on behalf of the multi-stakeholder pledge on advancing localization in displacement and statelessness responses. This pledge aims to identify opportunities and address challenges that local and national actors face when responding to displacement and stateless situations by developing stronger and more equitable partnerships with local actors, especially local civil society organizations. This multi-stakeholder pledge is an enabling pledge and contributes to the implementation of all 4 GCR objectives and builds on various localization initiatives. The multi-stakeholder pledge is guided by a reference group composed of 20 members representing diverse stakeholders, including the IFRC, UN agencies, member states, and NGOs, including national and local organizations led by forcibly displaced and stateless persons. I'll share a few overall figures on the individual pledges made since the GRF, which encompasses 42 individual pledges that has been submitted, a value of $140.3 million pledged, 475 or 44% local and national civil society organizations has received support. Oh, and now it's the 44%, I'm sorry. And 44% of these that were supported were organizations led by displaced and stateless persons. 26% of the pledges focus on women-led organization, and 76% of the pledges commit to support capacity sharing activities. We'd also like to share a few updates in the form of concrete examples of the implementation of the pledge. First, pledge implementation has commenced in differing contexts globally, such as in Uganda, where capacity strengthening support for RLOs is provided by Let's Help International. In Ukraine, an NGO resource center is being supported by the government of Switzerland. In Nigeria, local response mechanisms are being advanced by Endem Home of Hope. And in the Asia-Pacific region, women refugee-led organizations governance is being supported through an INGO monitoring pilot by ICFE. And there are many more activities we won't have time to mention here, but which we are all equally proud of. Secondly, the multi-stakeholder reference group established in 2023 will continue its functions. This represents a significant opportunity to ensure that we continue to harness the rich knowledge and expertise of members. The group has also set in place a monitoring framework to report on implementation progress. Thirdly, we'll continue to galvanize others to pledge. Towards this aim, we are coordinating with other relevant processes, promoting localization and locally led actions to explore and benefit synergies and identify opportunities for cross-fertilizations. To this end, an event was co-hosted by UNHCR, IFRC, ICFA, and Denmark during XCOM Week to build momentum around localization and highlight how the multi-stakeholder pledge complements the Grand Bargain commitments and reinforces the importance of advancing localization across the humanitarian development and peace nexus. We sincerely thank the members of the multi-stakeholder pledge reference group and all of those who have pledged. There is still much that needs to be done to achieve our collective localization objectives, and we invite others to join the pledge and to advance localization together with us. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Denmark. I'd like to give the floor to Canada, please. Canada, you have the floor. Canada really appreciates the update and all the endeavours undertaken by the UNHCR and other stakeholders. The interpreter would like to request if the speaker could please move the microphone towards her, please. Thank you very much. Microphone for the speaker, please. Microphone for the speaker. Yes, I hope you can hear me now. Can you hear me clearly off the speaker? Yes, thank you. Shall I begin again, or did you hear me well enough? So Canada was also encouraged by the political commitment at the international level in order to promote access to solutions as seen within the Executive Committee on Lasting Solutions, which we've seen this year. Canada will continue to uphold our commitment to resettle the most vulnerable, including our goal towards thousands of refugees being resettled within the Canada Refugee Framework Programme, and more than 27,000 refugees have been settled in our private sponsorship program. Canada is also committed to host 4,000 refugees from Americas between now and 2028. Canada is also deeply committed to find lasting solutions for LGBTQ+ refugees and to ensure the rights of all people worldwide, including through the dedicated resettlement programs. As co-chairing the Central Group, as well as co-chairs for Network towards Community Sponsorship towards the Global Initiatives for Sponsorship of Refugees. We also appreciate the close work with UNHCR and other key partners in the undertaking of all our endeavours and commitments.
Remains committed to its pledges on skills-based complementary pathways. The Economic Mobility Pathways Pilot, known as EMPP, has clearly demonstrated the benefits that can be achieved through close multi-stakeholder cooperation. Through EMPP, refugees and other displaced people can apply to become economic immigrants with permanent residence in Canada. This pathway has provided durable solutions and filled labour market needs in key sectors such as healthcare, skilled trades, and information technology. As we work to transition from pilot project to a sustainable framework to deliver on our pledge, Canada is focused on ensuring successful outcomes. Canada warmly welcomes the growth in refugee labour mobility globally. We remain a committed participant in the Global Task Force on Refugee Labour Mobility and encourage broad participation in the Refugee Labour Mobility Network to share experience and build on this momentum. At the 2023 GRF, Canada also committed to exploring a potential new complementary pathway for refugee students. We are in the engagement and consultation phase on an education pathway that would aim to reduce barriers that refugee and displaced students face in accessing study permits in Canada while improving equity and access. Chair, while I have focused on third country solutions today, I would like to underscore Canada's commitment to delivering on our much broader range of GRF pledges in close cooperation with UNHCR, other partners and stakeholders, and persons with lived experience. Thank you.
Merci, Canada. Thank you, Canada. Maintenant, je vais...
I will now give the floor to France. France, you have the floor. Thank you so much, Ambassador, Assistant High Commissioner. After the Global Refugee Forum, we are pleased to see the collective progress that we have made despite the difficulties. I'd particularly like to greet the peace-building work that has been done by Colombia. Thank you, Ambassador, for your presentation. This is an example for all. France continues to be committed to work alongside Colombia and the other co-sponsors of the GRF. We are proud to have met many commitments over the last year, particularly in terms of our contributions. It is the highest number, 130 million euros, 2023, and this will be upheld in 2024. Beyond funding, beyond pledge matching, we have also conducted specific actions to resettle 3,000 refugees in France. We have nearly met those goals this year. We have also mobilized our development agency in order to work alongside development actors to create greater resilience to crises. For example, for the multi-stakeholder pledges, France has strengthened the engagement of women in crisis response in Colombia, Ethiopia, and Ukraine. Ladies, gentlemen, Our goal for 2025 must be clear. It is to stay our course, to be able to help refugees, to help those countries and hosting communities. And our specific goals for us we need to be more diligent in our reporting so that the statistics can be commensurate with the needs in the lead up to the next HLOM. Thank you.
Merci, merci à la France.
Thank you so much, France.
Give the floor to Australia. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador, and good afternoon, everyone. So we've just heard from IAD, who gave a fantastic update on the resettlement and multi-stakeholder pledge, David, who gave an update on the skills-based multi-stakeholder pledge, and Marcus, who gave an update on the gender equality and protection from GBV multi-stakeholder pledge, all of which Australia is very proud to be involved in. So I'll try and keep my remarks quite short. Australia remains committed to leading international resettlement efforts. In 2023-24, we delivered a refugee and humanitarian program of 20,000 places, and we're committed to doing so again in 2024-2025. This marks the highest intake since 1982 and includes allocations to resettle Afghan and Rohingya refugees. We also remain ready to support other states to establish and grow their own resettlement programs and complementary pathways. Australia is also leading global efforts to expand access to complementary pathways opportunities. We're exploring a train-to-hire model in the Asia-Pacific to enhance refugees' access to skills-based complementary pathways. We have also expanded our skilled refugee labour agreement pilot to deliver up to 500 places by June 2025. We also remain committed to this goal through our role as the chair of the Global Task Force on Refugee Labour Mobility. Our priority there is to scale refugee labour mobility through sharing learning, innovation, coordinating efficiencies, and encouraging further refugee labour mobility initiatives, including with global stakeholders. Australia used our term as the chair of the 2024 consultations on resettlement and complementary pathways to maintain momentum to drive GRF outcomes and provide a place to collectively stocktake pledges, as I had also mentioned. Going forward, the CRCP will remain a forum to report on GRF progress, including through a standing agenda item to track implementation and allow collective accountability. We also continue to advance meaningful refugee participation. Australia established its first refugee advisory panel. We have benefited greatly from the expertise of panel members, including as refugee advisors to government, GRF, CRCP and UNHCR Executive Committee delegations. We will continue to position and prepare panel members as equal partners with opportunities to inform Australia's humanitarian and international protection of efforts. In closing, Australia will continue to work together in solidarity on the global challenge of displacement, to share responsibility to protection and find lasting solutions for the millions of people displaced around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. Let me tell you that we have about 15 more interventions. So we would like to thank you if the coming participants can shorten their remarks in order to allow all the interventions to be made. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm now going to give the floor to Olympic Refugee Foundation. You have the floor.
Thank you. Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honour to speak to you today on behalf of the Sport for Refugees Coalition. The Coalition provides a platform for members to connect, to learn, and to partner with others involved in supporting displaced people and their host communities through sport. 2024 has been a huge year for sport. The Olympic and Paralympic Games and other major sporting events showcased the power of sport for inclusion, with refugee teams raising awareness of the more than 120 million displaced people globally. For those uprooted by conflict or persecution, sport can provide tangible solutions. It is an opportunity to be included and, as a result, protected, a chance to heal, to hope and to thrive. Through sport, life and employability skills can be developed and opportunities for education and employment pathways can be identified, leading to greater self-reliance and contributions to new communities. Yet, this is only possible if access to and benefits through sport is supported for all. The Multi-Stakeholder Pledge on Sport for Inclusion and Protection was presented at the Global Refugee Forum almost a year ago. It brought together more than 140 entities committed to supporting refugees through sport across a number of commitment areas. We are incredibly pleased to share that collectively, in 2024, Coalition members have contributed to more than 445,000 people affected by displacement accessing sport and play-based opportunities. Commitments to the multi-stakeholder pledge have been implemented in over 80 countries. Over 100 safe sporting spaces have been created or refurbished, and more than 6,000 individuals trained to deliver sport-based activities. Sport has proven to be an effective tool fostering opportunities and solutions for displaced people, with pledging entities providing livelihood and employment prospects to over 200 people and awarding around 600 education and sport-based scholarships. Leveraging the platform of sport, members have communicated and advocated to promote refugee issues, helping to shift the narrative and reach new audiences on displacement topics. The Coalition is now looking ahead, in particular to the high-level officials meeting 1 year from now. We are eager to support states in their pledge implementation and welcome your interest in sport and its role in promoting better outcomes in areas such as social cohesion, education, gender and disability inclusion, as well as physical and mental health. We are also interested to hear from other pledging entities and welcome continued exchange on how sport and Coalition members can support your work. Our Coalition and wider sport movement stand ready to work in partnership to ensure refugees and their host communities don't just survive, but thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I give the floor to Great Step Initiative, Refugee Advisory Board. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'm grateful for this opportunity. My name is Cheng Laban. I represent Great Step Initiative, which is a UNHCR advisory board, a member of UNHCR advisory board for organizations led by forcibly displaced and stateless people. As organizations led by forcibly displaced people, we stand united in our commitment to the principles and objectives outlined in the Global Compact on Refugees. This statement serves as a call to action for all stakeholders involved in addressing the challenges faced by forcibly displaced and stateless persons, and a call on pledge entities to continue meaningful refugee participation in pledge implementation and stock-taking. We recognize the importance of collaboration among affected communities, international organizations, governments, faith-based institutions, academia, and international non-governmental organizations in achieving our shared goals. Refugee-led organizations are often the first responders in all displaced contexts. Communities know us and trust us. We are there before and long after major international organizations. In this regard, we appreciate the ability to collaborate with UNHCR and other entities, and our resilience and determination are vital in navigating the complexities of displacement. We engage with local communities, advocate for active participation in programs, support your pursuit for safe pathways for durable solutions, and work to rebuild our home when conditions allow. Our involvement is crucial because refugees have valuable knowledge and life experiences that can shape policies, increase accountability, and ensure long-term stability. We are grateful to humanitarian organizations which are working to uphold our rights and provide essential services during times of crisis. We acknowledge that these organizations face numerous challenges themselves, but it is imperative that you continue your advocacy efforts and resource mobilization hand in hand with local grassroots organizations. We call upon donors to reinforce their commitments under the Global Compact on Refugees on pledge entities to continue meaningful refugee participation in pledge implementation and stock-taking. Please include refugees in decision-making, increase funding allocation to refugee-led organizations, implement policies that facilitate refugees' inclusion in national systems, and advocate for legal frameworks that protect the rights of refugees and stateless persons. We are encouraged to see several countries, INGOs, and other stakeholders contributing to the meaningful refugee participation pledge, it is our collective suggestion that other countries emulate the example of Canada and Brazil, who have both fulfilled this initiative of resonating the voices of the affected persons in the various spheres that concerns them. Together, we can create an environment where displaced individuals are not merely surviving, but thriving. But this takes leadership. I want to ask you, what is that one specific action that you will take to ensure that the voices of refugees are heard in your organizations, in your government, and in your foundations? So we are here to ask you to continuously stand with refugees. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I give the floor to Brack Bier AC online.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'm, as a civil society respondent, probably the largest in the Rohingya crisis in Bangladesh, we're really pleased to see and have this opportunity to talk in front of you today. And we're very pleased, immensely pleased to hear about the progress at the policy level during this first part of the session. So for my part, let me highlight a specific country context and talk about some of the initiative that BRAC, as I said, one of the civil society respondent, is taking in the Rohingya crisis as a solution, as solution is the focus of this session, if you may. So, but before you go into that, let me just give you a quick context of what we are talking about. We're talking about a protracted crisis, more than 8 years, funding shortfall, only as of now, only 60% of the GRP resources mobilized. Security becoming a concern. There is a security crisis on the other side of the border, decreased social cohesion between the host and the refugees, and really no restricted livelihood and self-reliance opportunity. In this context, we're talking about three sorts of response, three sorts of solution for short, long, mid and long term. In the short term, and what also Denmark was talking about, we are promoting localization of response to reduce the cost, make the response more cost effective because the funding is going down, of course, and making use of the local resources more than international resources, or bringing local resources into the response. And to do that, we have worked with 27 local NGOs, small to mid-sized local NGOs, and we supported their capacity development, capacity sharing, as well as 29 projects for 1.5 years now. They will be completing 2 years, and then we'll do a review to see how many of these NGOs can then claim to be graduated, meaning they can directly work with the donors. In the midterm, but in the localization work, let me also thank Canada and Australia for the support. And the next thing that we are doing in the midterm is integrated service delivery model. After 7-8 years, this original model of service delivery become a little repetitive, little expensive, and there are a lot of ways you can trim down and streamline the services to be delivered at a lower cost and will be more accountable and efficient. And that's what we are going to try with UNHCR and funded by EU starting in January next year, to see how we can, in taking a small pilot of a couple of camps, and see how we can integrate the service delivery to attain what we're saying, efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability. This will also not only reduce costs, improve localization, but also bring in a lot of humanitarian development nexus ideas that we have been talking about as a solution. We'll like to put them into practice and see how we can have a response that address both the host and the refugee together, their crisis together, and at an economical way. And finally, we are talking about really a economic model expanding the pie so that the refugees can have economic activity can have a livelihood without harming the livelihood of the host. And we have done a initial estimate which talks about it takes around $3 billion to create 200,000 decent direct jobs and 600,000 indirect jobs, which will leave enough space for the refugees to get directly employed. We're now talking about the second phase of the modeling, where we'll be bringing in some additional consideration, economic consideration that was not there in the first phase. And that we're seeing as a long-term solution to create sustainability and resilience. Although, of course, we're struggling to get enough partner universities and so on to join us here. So maybe let me take this opportunity to call for any help, any partner who is there in this present today, who are interested to collaborate technically with this effort. So this is the three solutions that we are pushing at BRAC to solve or to lessen the problem that we have in Bangladesh faced by both the Rohingya refugees and the host community. Thank you.
Thank you to BRAC. I'll give the floor to Abnor, APNOR, online.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the floor to give an update on multi-stakeholder pledge on meaningful refugee participation. Am I audible? I'm assuming yes. Okay. Since the 2023 Global Refugee Forum, 81 individual pledges on meaningful refugee participation have been made by refugee-led organizations, national, international NGOs, foundations, governments, and the private sector. We are witnessing strong multi-stakeholder momentum around the pledge and its purpose, and that is to center forcibly displaced and stateless persons in decision-making at all levels, but more importantly, emphasizing diversity across age, gender, and disability. We are witnessing progress in all three key areas of the pledge. Firstly, we are seeing greater meaningful refugee participation and stateless persons in decision-making processes at all levels. It was positive that several delegations to the UNHCR Executive Committee this year included representatives with lived experience of displacement. Other initiatives are also expanding representations and influence, such as the Global Task Force on Refugee Labor Mobility, which we just heard, of which several pledge signatories are members, including the Refugee Point and the Government of Australia and Canada. Secondly, its growing number of initiatives aimed at enhancing greater accountability to displaced and stateless communities. RLO's refugee-led organizations are leading the way on this. Examples include Let's Help International's works to amplify the voices of refugees and IDPs, the YACA refugee-led organization network's training to community leaders in governance and transparency, and my own organization's APNO's training for non-refugee allies, which equips them with the tools to support genuine refugee inclusion led by those with lived experience. In addition, other pledging entities are also ensuring more meaningful involvement in their programs, as it is the case for ILO through the engagement of Youth Network Committee and cohesive promotion of organizational change in this area. Thirdly, many pledge signatories are providing RLOs with support to build institutional capacities and access funding, as it is the case for Oxfam and independent diplomats' work with local actors across various contexts. Others are working to address the legal barriers that prevent RLOs from attracting funding and operating effectively, as we've seen with PILNET's refugee-led clearinghouse. Yet, despite this progress, we are far away from achieving meaningful refugee participation, and representation is often tokenistic. We continue to face structural and logistical barriers that limits refugees' full engagement, particularly those related to access to funding and legal restrictions. This results in solutions that overlook critical needs and perpetuate a costly and ineffective response at a time when no one can afford it. As we move forward, there must be a deeper commitment to dismantling these barriers and creating spaces where refugees, including women, children, and youth, are not just included, but are leading the way. We call on others to join the pledge, to join our shared commitment to creating inclusive spaces, amplifying refugee voices, and driving collective actions towards a more just and equitable future for all. Thank you so much, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you to Asia Pacific Network of Refugees. Now I'll give the floor to Yarmouk University from Jordan, online.
Thank you very much, and hello everybody from Jordan. And thank you very much, especially for giving me this opportunity to brief you a bit about the Higher Education Alliance here in Jordan. It's a national Jordanian initiative launched by UNHCR Jordan in collaboration with the Refugees Studies Center at Yarmouk University. It is established as a result of advocacy efforts to facilitate refugees' access to tertiary and higher education. The Alliance now consists of a network of 17 diverse stakeholders, including public and private universities, vocational training organizations, community colleges, and other philanthropic associations active in Jordan. Our mission in this alliance is to ensure that refugees and vulnerable Jordanians have fair access to higher education, as well as technical and vocational development, of course, and training opportunities. The Alliance also aims to achieve the 15 by 30 pledge and target, that is raising the percentage of refugees students enrolled in higher education in Jordan to 15% by the year 2030. How significant is this alliance? The number of universities in Jordan that make studies more accessible to refugees will triple as a direct influence of this alliance. It is now only 4 universities, but I mean, due to this alliance, the universities involved will be 11, lowering the tuition fees for refugees to put them in par with Jordanians. The Alliance will help include refugees in information management systems and making their data more available for researchers and donors as well. The Alliance will raise the awareness about the current state of refugees' access to higher education and vocational education in Jordan, contributing to the dissemination of knowledge. Currently, the percentage of those enrolled in higher education in Jordan from the refugees community is only 9%. And we hope that we can increase that through the alliance to become 15 by the year 2030. Next year, the alliance plans to launch an advocacy and fundraising campaign aimed at creating greater opportunities for refugees, vulnerable Jordanian youth, empowering them and support their efforts to secure employment. Now, what are we up to right now at the center of the Refugees Center at Yarmouk University in collaboration with the UNHCR Jordan? We are working closely with the Syrian International Business Association, SIBA, to establish a student support fund at Yarmouk University. This fund aims to assist current and prospective Syrian refugee students in overcoming the financial barriers that hinder their enrollment at the university. Additionally, we organize various workshops in collaboration with our partners, whether it is the UNHCR Jordan or other partners inside Jordan and outside, of course, to guide Syrian students in exploring scholarship opportunities both within Jordan and abroad, ensuring that they have the resources and knowledge needed to pursue higher education. We're very proud at Yarmouk University that we started the initiative together with the UNHCR, and now, we started with only 1 university, and then they became 4, and now they're going to become 17 higher education to help refugee students enroll in higher education. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Yarmouk University. Now I will give the floor to Uganda. You have the floor, Uganda, please.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and many thanks for the presentation on a very important topic that relates to solutions. I would have loved to be in the room, but I think it's interesting to also be on the screen for everyone in the room. Commitment to peace building, like you presented, Ambassador, is very key because for Uganda belongs in a region that is extremely volatile as a result of different instability, especially arising from the fact of lack of peace. And so coming today to listen, I'm glad that I'm speaking towards probably the end, and having listened to colleagues, states, and also the civil society, We are at the fourth quarter briefing, 1 year later after the Global Refugee Forum. I'm proud as Uganda that besides doing the usuals of protection, we are very committed to advancing solutions. But what is solutions? If we are to talk about solutions, we can't divorce ourselves from the root causes of why people are on the move. And so in our region, the ugly head, the biggest ugly head is insecurity. And so the biggest solution for us is to find peace that is driving away people from the DRC, that is driving people from South Sudan, that is driving people away now from the Sudan. And I'm proud to say that we are engaging with our sister countries in the neighborhood through very established mechanisms of the African Union, of the East African Community that was recently celebrating the 25th anniversary, through IGAD, but also importantly through our own bilateral efforts with the governments concerned. Recently, when the High Commissioner visited Uganda, in his exchange with our head of state, it was interesting that it was clear when he asked, when do you expect peace in this region? And listening today, it's important and very clear that we are beating around the bush, not intentionally, but I think we have to normalize discussing, addressing root causes, even with friends and partners that we don't agree with. If the countries that we are running away from or that we are not very comfortable with have root causes that will continue to be a push factor for refugees or displacement or whatever cause it is, then we are only treating a symptom. It's like taking Panadol for cancer, and yet you are aware that in this country, there is this number of terrorist groups. DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, is our neighbor. It's estimated that there are over 100 terrorist groups. And we know only what one terrorist group can do. Can you imagine what 100 terrorist groups would do? Are we intentionally funding the peace processes? And so for us, this conversation today was very key because we have to be intentional in funding the processes that will get us to the solutions. I agree with the localization. Of course, I agree with involving refugees in trying to find this meaningful peace. But as states, we can't run away from our responsibility to confront our fears or our private political interests and put them aside if indeed we want to address the cause of movement. We all know why people are running away from the Sudan. We are seated in this room and online, and amongst us, there are still people funding the processes. Are we speaking about the same thing? Are we using one hand to say another and another hand is speaking from the same plate that we are condemning? So for us, it's important that we speak and show while we speak. Solutions is impact area 4. If you look at the UNHCR budget reports every year in standing committees, and I'm privileged that I was the rapporteur, impact area 4 is the least funded consistently. And the African group that I proudly belong to, Uganda, has said if we do not show that we are even intending to up the budget of the agency that is the front line of finding protection and solution for these people, are we even interested in ending this problem? Because what we are doing is we are treating a cancer with a tablet that will keep the wound under. It is important that we show this through not just saying these things here or making good pledges, but our actions of contributions, of support, whether it is in kind, whether it is in finances, towards solution starts with us. And so it's important that if we know Africa, for example, or Asia or Middle East is now the volatile, what efforts are we supporting? Because there are regional efforts and then there are bilateral efforts. There are also partners that have leverage over certain countries. Are we taking advantage of that? Or are we taking the behind seat because it does not resonate well with your politics? But when you come to the humanitarian, you would say another. For us today, we want to just be clear that at this briefing, it's important that we are able to report on how many peace efforts we are supporting. We should be able to announce how many efforts are we supporting for climate change that have induced the movement of people. Are we talking about root causes or we are just talking about supplementary protection options? Those are very important, by the way. Don't forget that 120 million people, they need the protection because they're already on the run. But if we want to stop that number or decrease it, we have to be intentional in supporting the root causes that are causing this displacement. That's the only place where the solution lies. And with that, Chair, I want to thank you very much that Colombia and with other states and the different multi-stakeholders that are focusing on peace building. It's a huge drive factor, and we hope that the reporting can come back just beyond the beautiful semantic statements that we make in these rooms, that we can be able to count tangible outcome of support, whether financial or in kind or whatever means of effort, that will eventually report next year that because of this support and effort, we're able to find solutions for about 2 million people. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Uganda. We are taking more time than expected. So let me ask the remaining speakers to shorten your interventions as best as possible. Let me also tell you that the interpreters have graciously accepted to stay longer than 5 p.m. to ensure we finish our deliberations. And we'd like to ask you, please, to thank them. I now give the floor to the United States of America. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Ambassador. I wanted to highlight 3 key achievements of the United States as it relates to this discussion, and that is related to our pledge on resettlement and complementary pathways. Since the launch of the Welcome Corps in January 2023, more than 125,000 Americans have applied to sponsor a refugee for resettlement in the United States. In December, the Department of State expanded the Welcome Corps to enable private sponsors to identify specific refugees they wish to support and to directly refer those refugees for consideration to the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, a first in the history of this program. To date, since launch, nearly 3,000 refugees have arrived through Welcome Corps, and we're on track to reach our fiscal year 2025 goal of 10,000 arrivals. In April 2024, the Department of State launched the Welcome Corps at Work, a targeted pilot initiative within the Welcome Corps where refugees can be matched with U.S. employers for dignified and decent jobs in critical industries such as healthcare, education, and information technology. The first arrivals through Welcome Corps at Work are planned for the spring of 2025. And in August, 17 participating U.S. colleges and universities and their on-campus sponsor groups welcomed the first cohort of refugee students to continue their higher education in the United States through Welcome Corps on campus. The last item I wanted to highlight was the work that we've been doing in our own hemisphere. The United States government launched the Safe Mobility Initiative in Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, and Guatemala in June of 2023. The SMI is just one part of a broader, comprehensive plan to take pressure off the U.S. southwestern border by addressing irregular migration in the region through several lines of effort, including local integration efforts and resettlement to the United States as well as partner countries. Already, almost 24,000 individuals have arrived in the United States and thousands resettled in our partner countries. We anticipate focusing on local integration efforts as we move forward in the region, and so while migrants could stay as close to home as possible, and expanding third country partnerships beyond the United States to increase access to resettlement for the most vulnerable. With these 3 initiatives, we welcomed over 100,000 refugees into the United States in this last year. Thank you.
Thanks to the United States. I give the floor to the European Union. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide an update on EU's commitments towards durable solutions for refugees, which we made through different pledges, including the HPD Nexus, economic inclusion, and resettlement, to name a few. In last December, we pledged 190 million on the HPD Nexus pledge to foster collaboration among sectors, of which 1 million were already disbursed, notably in support the countries of the Great Lakes region to provide durable solutions for the Burundian refugees, but also a regional project supporting various sub-Saharan countries to provide durable solutions for forcibly displaced populations. Another example is EU's contribution to the support platforms that were mentioned already today, including the solution strategy for Afghan refugees, MIRPS, IGAD, and CAR support platforms. Our commitment to building resilience through inclusion is also illustrated through our 126 million pledge for economic inclusion, out of which so far 93 million were disbursed in support to several hosting countries, including Uganda, Iraq, for integration into the national labor market and national systems for education and social protection, and Kenya for building opportunities for refugees and host communities' self-reliance. For years 24-25, 14 EU member states, supported by the EU, showed their commitment to providing safe pathways to protection by pledging collectively 61,000 places for resettlement and humanitarian admission combined. This program is ongoing. Only this year, as of September, member states reported almost 7,000 resettlement and 4,200 humanitarian admissions. We are also supporting the emergency transit mechanisms to facilitate the evacuation of the most vulnerable refugees and asylum seekers from Libya to Rwanda, to offer temporary hosting arrangements and enable access to protection and to durable solutions, including resettlement. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. I'll give the floor to Iraq. You have the floor, please.
Muchas gracias, Embajador. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. The Republic of Iraq would like to reaffirm its absolute commitment to the GCR and the New York Declaration on Refugees and Migrants, acknowledging the importance of international coordination to resolve problems pertaining to migration and forced displacement. Iraq, which has addressed a number of different challenges due to terrorism and war, is of the view that inter-regional, inter-country cooperation is the only way to guarantee the rights of refugees and migrants in order to find durable solutions to address their situation. Migration is an ongoing issue which requires international cooperation in order to address wars and climate change, which are very serious. Iraq would also like to underscore the importance of international cooperation and supports those humanitarian organizations and will work with all actors in the international community in order to find sustainable and lasting solutions which will underpin safe, orderly, regular migration and which will ensure situations for migrants who need to be able to integrate themselves into societies and to enter the labour market and address basic services. Iraq, as a host country, as well as being a country of displaced migration, would like to uphold its commitment to the New York Declaration, whose objective is to provide sustainable and tangible solutions for refugees and migrants who are to provide them with humanitarian assistance. Iraq is also working in order to strengthen cooperation with the international community in the provision of the required support in order to tackle the pressures which countries face due to the increase in the influx of migrants. Also, it is working towards the strengthening and modification of national legislation such as the Law 51 from previous years in order to address issues pertaining to migration. And thank you very much for your kind attention this afternoon. Thank you very much, Iraq. Now I'd like to give the floor to Brazil, please. Brazil, you have the floor. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Brief update on Brazil's pledge on resettlement, part of two multi-stakeholder pledges, resettlement and community sponsorship. As already mentioned during the presentations, Brazil presented on the second GRF the commitment to resume its resettlement program, which had been inactive since 2019. Our new program has finally been launched this year, with private and community sponsorship as a key tool. In the first phase of the program, the priority will be given to assist groups from Afghanistan. Last August, we have launched the first public call for NGOs who wish to become resettlement agreement holders. The program has been designed to support a wide range of initiatives, including both resettlement and complementary pathways. Brazil strongly believes that private and community sponsorship are an effective tool in supporting and accelerating local integration, while also offering an opportunity to build sustainable and durable solutions. Community sponsorships allow us to use and develop the existing capacity within our country with a multi-stakeholder perspective. By the end of this year, we intend to announce the first selected NGOs, which will allow our government to start bringing to Brazil the first groups for resettlement. Brazil is confident to be on the path to fulfilling one of our key pledges within the first year following the second GRF. I thank you.
Obrigado, Brazil.
Thank you very much, Brazil.
Floor to Ethiopia. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Excellency. Today's briefing is very important for countries like Ethiopia, which hosts refugees in protracted situations. Having said that, during the Global Refugee Forum, we have made commitments to solutions for refugees. I don't want to go into details about what has been expressed by IGAD representative about inclusion in Amharic, which we call it makatet. That indicates that we are doing our part in implementing our place in a comprehensive manner. Chair, in addition to place made by host countries and partners, place from countries of origin are encouraged. We need to bring them on board and make sure that they are safe for return on voluntary basis in a dignified manner. Dialogue and investment are key to let them make commitment. Hence, we have to invest more in basic infrastructures in countries of origin to let refugees be back home in a safe manner. The increasing number of refugees and the limited number of those finding durable solutions call for concerted actions. Since the number of refugees in protracted situations is increasing, implementing solutions in a coordinated manner would be important than ever. As we know, solutions are often interconnected and can be realized on a progressive basis. They have to be implemented in a comprehensive manner, not on a selective manner. Solutions are process, and they cannot be achieved without international cooperation. Therefore, enhancing international cooperation is also key to achieve solutions. We have just heard updates from the multi-stakeholder place co-leaders. We are pleased to see the progress despite the challenge, and maintaining the momentum would be important. As a host country, we believe that durable solutions are still far behind the objectives that we need to achieve. It's our firm belief that durable solutions need concrete, measurable place and more actions. Let me conclude by quoting my colleague Sven from Norway. Everyone has a role to play. Yes, everyone has a role to play. Let's do our part. I thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Ethiopia. I give the floor to Kenya. You have the floor, please.
Muchas gracias, Mr. High Commissioner for Protection. Excellencies, colleagues, a very good evening to you all. And thank you, UNHCR, for convening this meeting. And as a long-standing and major host country for refugees, Kenya welcomes the focus on solutions. At a time when driving factors for displacement of persons is at an all-time high, the need for durable solutions has never been greater. The GCR does identify a number of solutions, from support for countries of origin and voluntary repatriation, resettlement, complementary pathways for admission to third countries, and local integration. As the GCR notes, eliminating root causes is the most effective way to achieve solutions, and that voluntary repatriation in conditions of safety and dignity remains the preferred solution in a majority of refugee situations. Violent conflict is a major cause of displacement. It is causing immeasurable suffering while undermining stability and development. Kenya continues to invest in peace, in blood and treasure, and we honor the memory and lives of our compatriots who've paid the ultimate price in the service of peace. While assistance for people in the need of humanitarian aid and support is essential, addressing the major root cause of displacement, which is violent conflict, remains paramount to stem displacement and prevent new waves of displacement. It is also crucial to ensure a focus on solutions from the beginning of any crisis. Working with countries of origin remains crucial to address these root causes of violent conflict and to work on conducive conditions for returns and reintegration. We thank Japan and UNDP for their leadership on the advancement of the HDP nexus. This, however, while very crucial for host countries, is also very important for countries of origin to ensure that these conditions necessary are created. The HDP approach in countries of origin plays a crucial role in first addressing fragility, in preventing conflict, and very important in ensuring the necessary conditions for return and reintegration in safety and dignity are realized. As noted this morning, despite protractedness of conflict, narratives must also reflect on situations in the past where peace has been achieved and stability restored. And these situations can offer immense lessons on prevention, on conflict resolution, and addressing fragility to create a conducive environment for development and to prevent displacement. Despite the power of the Global Compact on Refugees to offer guidance on collective multi-stakeholder action, we remain very concerned over the pushback on the Global Compact on Refugees, which undermines its spirit and the transformative power it portends. Thank you for calling attention on a number of crucial factors, including the importance of matching pledges made by host countries in the Global Refugee Forum, as well as the focus on the HDP nexus. Matching of the GRF pledges is crucial. We did make national and multi-stakeholder pledges across vast areas, including climate action, economic inclusion, education, health, sports, human settlements, resettlement, and complementary pathways, and very importantly, peace building and conflict resolution. We thank the partners who have and are stepping up to match some of the pledges, and we urge more partners to join the matching efforts in order to realize the optimal implementation of these pledges. In the spirit of responsibility sharing, resettlement to third countries and voluntary repatriation need to have more attention. We have witnessed minimal allocation of resettlement quotas. It is therefore imperative that we put our commitments into tangible action by increasing resettlement quotas, as well as supporting sustainable peace to promote the returns and reintegration by refugees to their countries of origin. More importantly, these approaches that promote repatriation, reintegration, rehabilitation, and reconstruction in countries of origin need to be part of sustainable strategies for solutions for refugees. We decry the consistent underfunding of solutions on UNHCR's Impact Area 4, which we have stated in many meetings, and we must walk the talk. Let us put the money where it is most transformative in solutions. We cannot continue paying lip service to solutions. We say we need them, yet we don't resource them. We take note that some of the solutions transcend the direct mandate of UNHCR. In that regard, and as noted in the GCR, a multi-stakeholder approach to solutions is imperative. We urge UNHCR to leverage partnerships and a strong multi-stakeholder approach to work on solutions. I thank you for your attention.
Thanks to Kenya. I give the floor to PILNet, P-I-L-NET. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. PILNet coordinates the multi-stakeholder legal community pledge, a pledge that unites 120 stakeholders around the common goal of increasing access for and with refugees, stateless, and other displaced people, to facilitate access to rights, justice, and for today's meeting, lasting solutions. And together, pledge signatories have committed to provide over 1 million pro bono hours between the second GRF and the third GRF. And I want to quickly provide an update on our work in the solutions space. In terms of resettlement, the legal community has long played a pivotal role in supporting asylum seekers to be recognized as being in need of international protection and flagging particularly vulnerable refugees for resettlement. But beyond this, however, and with a shrinking number of traditional resettlement spaces, like others, the legal community has increasingly sought to use our skills and expertise to increase access to third country solutions and complementary pathways. Through its pro bono pitching roundtables and refugee-led clearinghouse, PILNet has supported the establishment of multi-stakeholder, cross-border pro bono projects that increase access to legal information and assistance for complementary pathways. For example, we have helped an NGO in Hong Kong partner with many law firms to provide legal assistance to access, for refugees to access the Canadian sponsorship program. I'd quickly like to highlight as well that is the only rights-based pathway for refugees and their families to seek safety. That PILNet and many of our pledge actors have invested significant resources and time in supporting family reunification, and we will continue to do that. As part of our taking efforts for this multi-stakeholder pledge, which we started last month, in 2025, we'll be launching a mapping of many of the collaborative pro bono projects that are being undertaken in the view to try to expand the support that the pledge can offer to complementary pathways and third country solutions. For anyone interested in this work, anyone who seeks free legal assistance, we welcome you to get in touch, and thank you.
Thanks to PILNet. I give the floor to IFRC. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I speak on behalf of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, which is a network of 191 national societies. Of these, more than 165 are working and providing needs-based humanitarian assistance and protection to migrants, refugees, and other displaced communities, whilst of these, 115 are providing specific support to refugees and asylum seekers. I wanted to touch just on two of the different areas of progress at the collective level related to the theme of solutions. So the first being on advancing locally led action and building on the excellent intervention from Denmark around progress to deliver on the localization pledge. I wanted to flag a significant policy development in support of this issue, which I hope will benefit locally led actors in the places of refugee and displacement response, including RLOs. Last month at the 34th International Conference of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, there were over 190 states party to the Geneva Conventions, as well as all of the components of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, who adopted a resolution on enabling local leadership, delivery, and capacity for principled humanitarian action and strengthening resilience. And this resolution emphasises the critical role of local actors, highlighting their leadership and capacity in key global areas, including in supporting vulnerable migrants, refugees, and other displaced people. It is now one of the strongest multilateral commitments we have on this issue of localisation, with commitments around effective and fair partnerships, safety, security, and well-being of local staff and volunteers, meaningful participation, streamlined reporting, investment in capacity strengthening, and ensuring adequate coverage of overheads. So we hope that this resolution will really galvanise increased efforts in support of locally led action, and we hope that any policy developments across the humanitarian sphere further bring progress to locally led action in refugee and displacement settings, especially for refugee, stateless, and displaced-led organisations. The second piece, just building on the work of the multi-stakeholder climate action pledge. So we as IFRC have been working as a network and collaboratively with others on implementation. Now, in the past 2 years, we've mobilised over 246 million Swiss francs to support community-led climate action in 48 of the most climate vulnerable countries. Now, what we're interested, though, to think about what we can do better collectively with others is to see how we can take further action at the local level on implementing this multi-stakeholder pledge, identifying vulnerable populations, including refugees and IDPs, through risk mapping and assessments, and then scaling up climate-smart action at the local level, both to reduce the risks of displacement and to support the resilience of communities facing the impacts of climate change, including refugee and displaced communities. In terms of collaborative action, we've been leading the Pillar 4 of Early Warnings for All initiative on preparedness to respond alongside the other pillar leads of WMO, UNDR and ITU. We think that this initiative exemplifies a number of parties coming together and where there are areas for stronger collaboration, including addressing the needs of refugees and displaced communities, and hope to work closely with other pledge signatories of both the Climate and the HDP Nexus pledge. We hope that we can work closely with others supporting this pledge and other relevant pledges to scale up action that meets the needs of refugees and displaced communities and to better manage climate-related displacement. In particular, we want to ensure that people and communities are empowered and able to stay in their homes, move out of harm's way, or recover on their own terms. Thank you very much.
Thanks to the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. I now give the floor to the UNDP. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I'm pleased to provide a very brief update on the GRF multi-stakeholder pledge to accelerate the humanitarian development peace nexus approach, which is being co-convened by Japan and UNDP. Thank you to all pledge members, Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, UNDRR, GIPS, the Jordan River Foundation, and the American Football for African Mission for their progress reporting. Collectively, the reporting have included support to many countries: Kenya, Colombia, South Sudan, Uganda, Jordan, and Bangladesh, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Mozambique, to name a few. Support also includes vulnerability assessments, disaster risk reduction technical support, IDP data improvement, and self-reliance solutions in line with the SDGs, and also support to HDP Nexus Academy. We held 3 roundtables where we provided a platform for refugee hosting countries. We discussed best practices, and we really encourage collective efforts for resilience-driven responses to forced displacement. Thank you for the dedication, and we welcome more pledge members to share their reporting and also the good experiences, especially the ones we've heard today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, UNDP. And our last speaker, if I am right, is the FAO. You have the floor, please. FAO.
Merci, Excellence.
Thank you very much, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to reiterate FAO's commitment and also to thank Norway and others to underscore the importance of food security and food safety as an integral part in order to combat resilience and to help with refugee and migrants. Agriculture is crop rearing, fisheries. Agriculture will transform the lives of refugees. This will to strengthen their resilience to climate change, their self-reliance, and to contribute to local peace between refugees and host communities without forgetting their ability to empower women. We underscore the importance of the initiative of Japan and Norway, which in September organized a joint high-level event between the two pledges to look at the nexus between agriculture in order to look at to strengthen partnerships in order to find lasting solutions. We also welcome the initiatives of a number of different governments who have taken important pledges in order to broaden economic opportunities for refugees, to give them access to land and to reinforce food security and the nutrition. These pledges show the ambition and the spirit and the complementarity of all the pledges. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you, FAO.
Y ahora le devuelvo la palabra.
Now I'd like to hand back to the floor to our dear Assistant High Commissioner for Protection, Ravindri Menigdid-Wella. I would ask you to summarize the statements and perhaps give us your thoughts.
Thank you, Ambassador. I do not think I could do justice to the incredibly rich discussion that has just taken place. But I do want to thank all of you for your very active commitment and engagement on these issues. But just perhaps a few that I would really like to highlight. I really want to thank Denmark for updating us on the whole issue of localization, the pledge, but also the importance of localization. And I think there are several actors and interveners in this session who actually highlighted that and also symbolized that. I'm thinking particularly of entities like BRAC, which spoke at length about the short, the medium, and long-term projects that they have in terms of encouraging self-reliance of refugees, but also of the host communities. IFRC, that has also highlighted the whole issue of localization and its importance in relation to solutions and also for assistance to refugees. And I do want to really to highlight their contributions and to express my appreciation for that. Many of you have also indicated or at least updated on resettlement and complementary pathways. To all of you who have indicated an increase in the resettlement quotas or an increase in initiatives relating to complementary pathways or maintaining the quotas or resuming the quotas, France, Canada, Australia, the United States and Brazil, I do want to thank you for your continued commitment and your engagement in this regard. Resettlement and complementary pathways are a critical solution, just as important as voluntary repatriation and socioeconomic inclusion in host countries are. And we do want to thank you for your continued commitment there. In terms of root causes, the humanitarian development and peace nexus, the root causes, and the importance of peace processes. We have heard very, very eloquent interventions from Uganda, Kenya, and also from UNDP on the importance of this. From Kenya in particular, we also heard about the importance of solutions from the start of a crisis and not waiting for the crisis to become protracted before looking at solutions. Again, we strongly endorse those positions and wanted to highlight them. The importance of regional and international cooperation were highlighted by Iraq and by Ethiopia in terms of solutions, but also in terms of the provision of assistance and protection and assistance to refugees. And again, this is something that we strongly encourage and we hope to see more of in terms, certainly through the commitment to the pledges. I also want to just highlight a few outliers, such as, of course, the Olympic Refuge Foundation, which highlighted the importance of sports as a tool for refugee protection and solutions. And this year in particular, of course, with the Olympics and the Paralympics, I think that the role of refugees in sports and the advantages that sport brings to the refugees has certainly been highlighted very eloquently. In terms of education, I do want to highlight the contribution of the Alliance of Universities in Jordan, who highlighted the importance of education as a tool of self-reliance for refugees, and also highlighted the initiative 15 by 30, which is one of the initiatives that UNHCR is implementing to have at least 15% of the refugee population accessing higher education by 2030. Other quick, perhaps, remarks, the importance of inclusion. Ethiopia and Kenya certainly not only have highlighted it, but they symbolize it. They are pioneers in terms of the integration of refugees or the very proactive socioeconomic inclusion of refugees in the respective countries, and we do want to thank them for that, but also to highlight the need for assistance, for international assistance to these two countries in particular, and certainly to Uganda as well, as host countries which have been hosting refugees for protracted periods of time and which have been repeatedly calling really for international cooperation and collaboration in this regard. And finally, perhaps on some of the other quick issues, the importance of agriculture as a tool for self-reliance. Thank you very much, FAO, for highlighting that. Climate action, which also came up and which IFRC had notably dwelt on. Remembering, of course, that 70% of the world's forcibly displaced come from climatically vulnerable countries or are residing in climatically vulnerable countries. And then certainly last but not least, the importance of legal assistance and counseling as provided, the update provided by PILNET. We are deeply grateful to all of the pro bono work that so many lawyers around the world are actually providing to refugees and asylum seekers, and we do want to thank you for that. With that, Ambassador, if I may, I think we will conclude this session. We have gone well beyond time. We really thank you for the patience that you have demonstrated, which clearly also demonstrates your engagement and commitment to the whole cause of refugees, and particularly to the issue of solutions. Since this will be the last quarterly briefing for 2024, I do want to thank all of you and to wish you all happy holidays and to say that we will be reconvening in March next year. So thank you very much to all of you.
Coge el letrerito. Claro, nada.